Have you ever stopped to wonder what really shapes your everyday reality? Like, what if what you see isn't the whole picture, but maybe just one part of a much bigger energetic interplay? Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into something really fascinating, this idea of an energetic cocoon around every person. It comes from a recent webinar series, Projections of the Dark Sea of Awareness.
That's right. Yeah, the source material for this deep dive is that webinar series. It gives a really unique angle on our personal energy, how we connect, with everything.
Right, and we're going to try and unpack the layers of this cocoon. There are some surprising ideas here about perception, habits, even maybe hidden forces affecting your experience. Okay, let's get into it.
So first off, this cocoon is described as a complex projection. It's really central to your personal energy, your personal power. And it's not simple. It's made of many, many intricate layers, different energetic levels.
Okay, layers. So what's the first one we sort of interact with?
That would be the outer fringe, or sometimes just called fibers.
Mm,
Think of them as your main connection to the outside world, the first point of contact.
right. And how do they work?
Well, what's interesting is they attune automatically. So any object you focus on, doesn't matter if you think it's living or not, like a stone, paper, a table, it sends fibers back to you.
Huh. So it's a two-way street.
Exactly. The idea is fibers attract fibers. And this constant back and forth, that's what actually shapes your perception.
Okay. And then moving inwards.
Yeah, deeper in, you have the inner fibers. They're shorter. And they form this really crucial protective layer, a boundary, you could say, between your inner energetic self and the outer world.
A boundary. Makes sense. And what does a healthy one look like?
A healthy cocoon, especially for someone on the way of knowledge, is usually described as round, even. Think about babies. They're born with these new, beautiful, good cocoons.
Yeah.
They have this smooth, beautiful luminosity. The colors might vary, but the structure is pristine.
And their energy just flows freely.
Right. No restrictions. And apparently there's very little difference for them between being awake and dreaming. But, adults, we mostly lose that ability.
Hmm. And you mentioned something else on the outer layer, a grid.
Ah, yes, the grid. There's another component out there. It forms when an external flow, something coming from what the source calls the double, closes off. The double is sort of like your subtle, energetic counterpart, an energetic blueprint, maybe.
Okay, the double. We might need to come back to that. But this difference between babies and adults,
Yeah.
that's really striking. Why do we lose that free-flowing energy? What happens?
Well, that brings us to the next layer down. Under the inner protective fibers, this is where the layer of habits forms.
Habits, like brushing your teeth habits?
Well, energetically speaking, yes, but it's broader. It's created through our interactions, repetitive actions, repetitive demands from others, from the world. Our teachers, our environment, they essentially teach us to see and interact with the world in a very linear fashion.
So these habits aren't just mental, they're energetic structures.
Exactly. They form these things called umbrellas of energy. Picture an umbrella shape with a central axis, stable fibers, and they end in this sort of cycle of circular energy. They rotate.
Okay, whoa. Rotating energy umbrellas dictating how we see things. But you said adults lose the baby's free flow. Is this habit layer why?
It's a major part of it, yes. It channels perception into predefined patterns.
Is it permanent? Can we do anything about it?
Ah, well, that's the good news, right? The source says this rotation can be stopped. It involves consciously destroying habits and, crucially, stopping your internal dialogue.
The inner chatter.
Yeah.
So for you, the listener, this means you actually have some control here. It's not just abstract theory. By working on those ingrained patterns, that constant voice in your head, you can actually change the filters, see things differently.
That's precisely the implication. You can reshape how your energy interacts with the world.
Okay, that's hopeful. Now, going deeper inside the cocoon, what about its structure, its integrity?
Oh, absolutely critical. The shells of the cocoon, the main structural layers, their integrity is vital. Any destruction or cracks in these shells, the source warns, can lead to really severe illness or even the end of existence.
That sounds serious, like really serious.
Yeah, they give an example. A wide black crack reaching the navel area. That signifies an irreversible loss. The cocoon just collapses, the internal energy bursts out. Game over, basically.
Wow, okay. So protecting the structure is key. What's at the very core then?
Inside, the internal core, the brightest part, is described as a white stripe. It comes down from above, and it's what actually creates the projection, your reality. You see it best apparently in a dreaming state, when the outside noise is shut out.
A white stripe creating reality. And is that it at the core?
Not quite. Flanking that white stripe are 3 amber-yellow stripes on each side.
These aren't just colors, though. They're reflections in different vibrational densities, different energy frequencies.
Okay, density. So these strikes are important.
Hugely important. They act like energetic wires. It's through these wires that the awareness of the double, remember the energetic counterpart, actually moves.
Ah, the double again. So its
Yeah.
awareness flows through these wires.
Yes, through what's called the double's alignment impulse. It's this constant rhythmic flow of energy from the double, keeping your cocoon's awareness aligned. Think of it like 7 white dots of energy descending simultaneously, entering the cocoon, going where needed to support your cells, renew life.
So it's like a constant energetic maintenance routine from this double.
Pretty much, yeah, a vital flow.
And this internal flow, does it just stay inside?
No, it interacts with the world too. It creates a reflection of vibrations, like a ricochet effect.
A ricochet. The complexity here is just mind-boggling.
It really is. And that leads to another structure, spirals. These descend from the double as its attention enters the bubble of the world, as the source calls it. These spirals have 2 flows moving in opposite directions, twisting around each other, forming bundles of energy where they expand.
Bubble of the world. Spirals.
Ah.
Bundles of energy.
Okay. And you mentioned densities earlier. Can you elaborate a bit?
Right, density levels.
Thank you.
The source touches on this, suggesting humanity used to live mainly in a 3rd density. More aggressive, apparently. But after 2012, many supposedly shifted to 4th density, and 5th density is also becoming accessible.
5th density, accessible, meaning
Meaning it's easier to perceive the cocoon itself, interact energetically, that sort of thing. Interestingly, the cocoon's outer shells are said to correspond to the 5th density, while that central white stripe flow comes from an even higher 7th density.
7th density. Wow. Okay, that's a big concept. Let's maybe bring it back to the cocoon itself. Are there specific functional spots or centers within it?
Yes, definitely. Several key centers that shape how we interact and perceive. There's the lower center, down where the cocoon touches the world's surface, is a major contact point. For most people, this is their only real point of interaction, and that's what leads to that linear, everyday perception.
The one we learn through habits. Exactly. But the source makes a point. Reality isn't actually continuous like we think. There are gaps between the double's alignment pulses, these moments of pure emptiness. But because we lack the energetic speed, we can't hold on to them, so we just perceive nothing, blankness.
Miss the gaps. Okay. What other centers?
There's the navel center, another big one, described as the exit of will or pure emptiness. And this originates from way up high, a 12th level of density.
12th level. Pure emptiness. What happens there?
All your awareness, your energy, even the color of your awareness, it all gathers and moves from this navel center. The cocoon has to gather immense energy here just to balance out that profound emptiness. And interestingly, the long fibers used for dreaming, they also come from this area.
The dreaming fibers.
Yeah.
Connected to will and emptiness. Okay.
Any others?
A few more key ones. There's the second attention indentation. That's where the energy body actually contacts the physical body. Then you have vortices, little whirlpools of energy created by internal organs like the kidneys, heart, lungs, as energy twists through them.
Vortices from organs. Yeah. And an upper opening or perceptual hole at the very top of the head, associated with those higher densities we talked about. Energy loss here can show up as irritation, leading to anxiety and fear. It signals you lack the personal power to balance that emptiness.
Irritation leading to anxiety. That sounds familiar for many people. And finally, you mentioned a decision-making center.
Yes, at the base of the neck, characterized by a gentle blue energy. It's directly linked to the movement of the assembly point, which we should probably talk about next.
Okay, but first, this decision center. What's the key thing about it?
Decisions made there should ideally be the result of thoughts, words, and actions. Alignment. And this connects to a distinction the source makes between will and intent.
Will and intent, aren't they the same?
Not quite in this context. Will is described more like your focused, personal directive power, what they call third attention, but intent. That's seen as something much bigger, a manifestation from the dark sea of awareness.
The dark sea of awareness,
Wow.
like a cosmic source.
Kind of, yeah. A vast underlying energetic field. Intent comes from there. It's something you can only really call in or offer yourself to. You can't control it like you can your personal will. It's a subtle but profound difference.
Okay, calling in intent versus exerting will. Got it. So you mentioned the assembly point is linked to the decision center. What exactly is the assembly point?
Ah, the assembly point. This is absolutely central. It's the place where perception is gathered. Think of it like the focal point of your awareness, the lens through which you see reality.
Where perception gathers, how does it form?
It forms from the reflection of the double's energy flow as it hits the world. It's intrinsically linked to the creation of the cocoon itself. And for people really exploring this stuff on the path of knowledge, it can actually shift its position inside the cocoon.
Move inside. What does that do?
It allows for radically different ways of perceiving reality, different realities even.
Okay. And how does it work mechanistically? How does it gather perception?
It selects a specific flow of those outer fibers coming from the world. Then your inner fibers fix and illuminate that selected flow. This transforms the raw energy data into an image, which gets projected onto the front shell of your cocoon. And that is what you perceive.
Wow. So we're projecting our own reality onto the inner screen of our cocoon based on what the assembly point selects and lights up.
That's the model, yes.
Okay, now this is crucial for you, the listener, if that's how it works. What about those habits we talked about? How do they mess with this?
Yes. The habits interfere directly. They rotate the energy, remember? This rotation takes that complex, vibrant flow of illuminated fibers and simplifies it, forcing it into a familiar image. So instead of experiencing, say, a tree as this shimmering field of energetic fibers, boom, your habits make you just see tree. The concept, the label.
It's like an energetic shortcut imposed by our habits. We lose the raw data.
Exactly. We reduce the richness of the energetic reality to a known quantity.
Bad.
Well, the source acknowledges this linear perception is effective for life in a community. It helps us function together. It's what we're taught from childhood. But, and this is the key, it's not the only way of perception. It's just one possibility, perhaps the default one we've all learned.
We're taught it. That's really something to think about. Now, this gets even more interesting. The webinar mentioned a difference in the assembly point based on gender.
Yes, quite a distinct difference, apparently. For men, the assembly point is typically located right on the surface of the cocoon.
On the surface, so.
So any shift moving it to perceive differently requires a real effort, a battle, to achieve it and then hold it there. For women, however, the assembly point is naturally located deeper inside the cocoon, about a palm's width or a fist depth deeper than the surface.
Deeper inside, what's the effect of that?
It inherently gives women a deeper perception from the get-go. And crucially, it makes it much easier to shift the assembly point.
Easier. How much easier?
Well, there's an anecdote shared. A man might struggle for 2 years just trying to find his hands in a dream, a basic step in controlling dream perception. But a woman, just hearing that it's possible, might apparently achieve it the very next day.
Wow. That's a significant difference.
It is. It doesn't mean it's effortless for women, the source clarifies, but it gives them a definite head start if they choose to explore this path of knowledge.
A natural advantage in shifting perception.
Fascinating. Were there any other structures mentioned around the assembly point?
Yes, briefly. Butterfly wing flows. These are described as broad, curved flows of energy around the assembly point. They apparently glow really brightly when the assembly point shifts position.
Butterfly wings. Okay, and one more thing related to perception, something about a hook.
Ah, yes, the mind's hook. Despite the fact that we perceive with all those long outer fibers across the whole cocoon, our normal, everyday conscious awareness is incredibly narrow, almost millimeter-sized, the source says. It's constrained by this hook of the mind. So even with this vast potential apparatus, our conscious focus is tiny, like looking through a pinhole.
Pretty much sums it up, yeah.
Okay, now, the webinar also mentions something potentially darker, an external influence?
Yes. This is a more, let's say, disturbing aspect of the teachings. An external force, they call the predator, or sometimes the flyer.
Predator, flyer, what is it?
It's depicted as a dark ring-like structure, and it apparently constantly floats in our fibers.
Yeah.
Its effect is to disturb the fibers, preventing our perception from becoming holistic, wide, clear.
Disturbing the fibers. How? What does it do?
Its main impact is that it deprives us of the energy we need to balance that internal emptiness we discussed. And this leads to deformed cocoons. They lose their healthy round shape, they become stretched and strange, sometimes sunken, torn, or cypress-like, meaning dull and narrow. Some are even described as missing their upper parts entirely because of this influence.
That sounds quite intense. Can you fight it?
Well, this is critical. The source says this entity is energy. It doesn't have its own assembly point like a person does, so you cannot fight it directly, like in a physical battle.
So what can you do?
The defense is internal.
Hmm.
Energetic discipline, you have to resist anxiety. You have to make oneself inedible, become energetically unappealing to it,
Hmm.
and very importantly, eliminate any manifestations of self-pity.
Self-pity. So things like anxiety and self-pity actually make you vulnerable.
According to this source, yes.
Right.
They are energetic states that this flyer seems to feed on. Resisting those states, maintaining your energetic integrity, that's the defense.
Wow. Okay, that's a heavy concept, but a powerful takeaway about managing our own energy. So shifting gears slightly, how does our individual cocoon fit into the bigger picture, the world itself?
Right. The world is also seen as a projection, remember, like a big bubble.
Mhm.
And both our cocoon and the world's bubble have these colorless contact spots on their surfaces.
Contact spots like Velcro.
Hey, sort of an energetic version, maybe? If your cocoon spots line up precisely with the world spots, then you integrate inside the world. You're held there, stable, aligned.
Okay, and if they don't line up?
If they're slightly shifted, that's where things get interesting. It can lead to people being psychologically unbalanced. Or, perhaps surprisingly, it can also be characteristic of seers people with unusual perception, or even just sick people. The point is, the cocoon isn't properly fixed or anchored within the world's bubble.
So misalignment can manifest in different ways. Illness, unusual abilities, instability.
Yeah.
Can we visualize what a healthy versus unhealthy cocoon looks like again?
Sure, a healthy one. Uniformly spread fibers, roughly equal length, looks like a sphere or at least a chicken egg. Crucially, no darkening on the surface, though there might be internal layers that nourish children. That's different. And absolute no cracks.
Okay, smooth, even, luminous, intact, and damaged.
Sick or damaged cocoons are deformed. The fibers are sagging. These sagging fibers are often described as looking pink or orange. Trying to keep your assembly point on the surface of a damaged cocoon like that takes immense energy.
And when that energy runs out?
The fibers sag, the assembly point shifts inwards, and you tend to fall into a dreaming state as the system tries to realign perception.
Like an emergency shutdown or reset?
Yeah.
And you mentioned compartments.
Yes. Most people, a normal human, have just one colorless dividing line inside, like a two-colored rubber ball. But some individuals might have additional compartments, more dividing lines, suggesting perhaps more complex internal energetic divisions.
More compartments.
Yeah.
Okay, lots to consider there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something maybe a bit more visually immediate. The colors within the cocoon. What do they signify?
Right, the colors. They're basically a reflection of how you're using your awareness.
Yep.
While everyone's colors might be slightly different, there are common patterns mentioned.
Like what? What's the baseline?
Neutral awareness, just your awareness existing, is typically amber.
Amber. Okay. What about negative states, like with the flyer influence?
When affected by flyers, or just generating those energies yourself, you might see dark brown or dark green. These represent fear, anxiety, and concern.
Dark, murky colors for negative emotions. Makes sense. And positive.
If your intentions are pure, your basic amber color will grow and can produce other, cleaner colors. Examples given are layers of turquoise, yellow, orange. Turquoise specifically is said to suggest striving for something beyond everyday life, a higher aspiration.
Turquoise for striving. I like that. What happens when awareness is just resting?
It tends to return to that base amber state.
Okay. And there was one more color mentioned. Pink.
Yes, pink or pink purple. This is described as the color of leaving or going out.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean physically leaving, but choosing to explore your internal world, finding an energetic flow that leads out of the world into external worlds. This specific kind of internal exploration results in this pink or pink-purple hue.
Leaving the everyday world energetically. Leading to pink. It's like a visual map of our consciousness.
In a way, yes. A very dynamic, colorful map.
Wow. What a journey we've taken. We've gone from the outer fibers connecting us to everything through protective layers, habit layers, into the core with its stripes and flows, the critical shells, the power of the assembly point. We looked at how habits can really filter our reality, how that predator force might affect us, and even how the colors show our state of awareness.
It really paints a picture of perception being far more dynamic, more complex, and frankly more energetic than we usually think, doesn't it? And if you connect it all, it does raise that big question. What if this waking reality is just one kind of dream? One perception configuration among many, constantly shaped by these unseen forces, by our habits, by the state of our own energy.
Maybe the next time you look at something simple, like a tree, you'll pause for a second. Consider that vibrant, complex world of fibers and energy beneath the label tree, and wonder what your cocoon is actually perceiving. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the energetic human cocoon. So much to think about. What part really stands out to you?